Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 68 of the Best Games Period. I'm Jack Gardner, and with me this week are Daniel Jones and Jeremy Brown. Say hello, fellas.
What's up, everybody?
How you doing, world?
Yeah, this week we're going to be talking about a little-known game called Willy the Wombat for the original PlayStation. Oh, read that wrong. Actually, Crash Bandicoot. It's kind of been the talk of the town. Was developed under the working title of Willy the Wombat.
I think Willy the Wombat would have been a great title.
I think Willy the Wombat would have been forgotten in, like,
I agree.
a couple years.
Hey, they're remaking Bubsy, or bringing Bubsy back, so, you never know.
And no one wants that. It was a joke. That was a complete... People were only asking for that as a joke, and now they're going to get it, and no one's going to buy it. It's just going to be sad.
Hey, Microsoft has talked about bringing friggin' Voodoo Vince back, or Blink's the Time Sweep.
Hey, okay, I was going to say Voodoo Vince, no one cares about Voodoo Vince, but Blink's the Time Cat, they had a good premise there. It's basically Ghostbusters, but with time and a cat. And I feel like that's a winning combination if they could just get it right.
Yeah. Maybe Rare can bring Grabbed by the Ghoulies back.
I feel like they'd have to go with a different name, though. In this day and age, that would definitely be taken in the wrong direction. We're all in a weird state of mind tonight, everybody, so just let the jokes slide, and we are going to...
I think there was supposed to be innuendo in Grabbed by the Ghoulies. I'm pretty sure that was on purpose.
That was it. That was intentional, was it?
Yeah. Rare's all about the innuendo.
Yeah, Banjo-Kazooie. Oh, man. Oh. But yeah, how are you guys doing? It's been a full week since we talked. More than a week, actually, because we're actually recording this fairly last minute. So, what's going on, Smellers?
So today we went to this farm stand. We go to this farm stand. It's delightful.
Stand?
Yeah, that's what we call it.
What is a farm stand?
It is a little building on a farm where they sell fresh vegetables and fruits. And
okay, yeah.
Homemade pies and homemade salsas and stuff.
Yeah. Okay, I get the concept.
All right, maybe that's just what we call it in the Northeast. I don't know if other people call it that.
We call it freedom. So in some states, you can't sell homemade shit on the side of the street. It's true.
Well, they probably have some sort of LLC or something. So anyway, so we went there, and this kid was leaving, and we're near UConn, so I'm pretty sure he was probably a UConn student, and he just looks at me as I'm walking up. I don't know this kid. And Coley's like, why is he looking at us? And, I was thinking, does he work here? What's happening?
Was it the same kid from before who wanted to fight you?
No.
It was
this kid's 20-something. And so he just looks at me and he just goes, sorry. He's like, is that a Rocket League t-shirt? I was like, oh, yeah. Yeah, I'm wearing my Rocket League t-shirt today. So I was like, oh, yeah, it is. And he's like, oh my god, do you play? What rank are you? I was like, oh gosh, I haven't played in a year. It's I don't.
And my rank is terrible.
My rank is probably really high because I've put in so many hours into that game. I'm pretty sure I'm veteran or something else like that.
Yeah, you're practically pro.
Expert. No, I'm above pro. As far as the ranks go.
Gotcha.
But, so I'm like, I don't even know. I guess Coley said I was rude to the kid. So then I'm like, I don't know. He's like, oh, okay. He's like, well, my friends and I just love it. Look, we play that game all the time. Oh my god, they'll get such a kick out of this. And he's like, can I take your picture? I'm like, oh, all right. So I stood there and he took my picture with my shirt on. And I guess he was like, I'm sorry to bother you. I was like, no, it's fine, But apparently I was very short with him, Coley said that I was rude and that I probably hurt his feelings because I probably made him feel weird for wanting to take my picture with the Rocket League t-shirt.
Well, I do think maybe there's some validation to the concept that he may feel weird. Should maybe feel weird for that.
Yeah, right?
Like, how does somebody who's got a whole gaggle of friends that are obsessed with Rocket League never have seen somebody wearing a Rocket League shirt?
Yeah,
like, you think they would have some of their own.
Go buy it. I know.
Yeah.
Coley's like, oh, he wrote a whole article about professional Rocket League. You should go read it. And I'm like, yeah, I read online once in a while. I was very, very bashful about it because I usually am whenever she mentions it. So I'm like, yeah, it's no big deal. But the kid was just like, I don't know. She's like, you would make a terrible celebrity. I guess I would.
No,
Anyway.
no, I'd make an okay celebrity. Don't overblow it. I'm,
But anyway, I just thought that was funny.
Don't take my picture, please.
So if you see my picture on Reddit with the Rocket League t-shirt on, you know where it came from.
Yeah.
What about you, Jack?
The headline be like, something about douchey dad plays Rocket League. Like maybe he's really going to scathe you on Reddit.
Oh yeah, totally.
It's also totally weird when you ask to take pictures of him randomly.
I just wanted to go to the farm stand with my family. Can't I just be left alone for 1 minute? Damn it.
You're just too popular, Daniel. You have no expectation of privacy in that situation.
Ugh.
You're like eminent.
That's according to the court.
Anyway, Jeremy, how you been?
We're good, I guess. Busy, but not busy.
But also busy.
But also busy. Hot.
Yeah.
Dylan's home. His little brother's staying with us for a few weeks. So.
Wait,
Wow.
Dylan has a little brother?
Yeah.
How did I not know that?
I don't know. I probably don't talk about it very often. It's not mine.
Okay.
Well, I mean, it's not like I have this other kid. I just never talk about it. Is what I'm saying.
Well, I've just known you for 6 years, and I didn't know that your son had a brother. Anyway,
Yeah, he does.
is it like a secret seller type situation?
Yeah, they keep him locked up.
Yeah.
He's 12. He's a pretty cool kid.
Nice.
Did
Nice.
Dylan bring all his TVs back?
Yeah,
With him?
yeah.
What? Why does no part of this make sense to me so far?
He only bought one. Dylan bought a TV when he got to Kalispell.
Okay.
To have there.
So he could play. Yeah, always have one. 'Cause
Yeah.
taking turns for the shits, I guess. He brought his PS4, his Switch, his DS, his Game Boy Advance.
Jeez. Kid is so spoiled.
All the things.
Yeah. And then bought a TV so he could.
That's all good.
I mean, he was there.
Sounds
for a
like he was
while.
set.
Yeah.
No, I should be nice to him. He could probably teach me a thing or two about Breath of the Wild. Now that I'm playing it.
Yeah, he probably could. He's
Yeah.
playing it again after the expansion was released.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. Bought ARMS and Mario Kart and all that. So he's been busy playing games.
I've been all right. Things are finally starting to settle down a little bit, just outside of my professional life, and so that's appreciated. And I've been playing a little bit of Suikoden 2, which has been really good. But I was also reminded sharply about how retro RPGs are and how you need to save basically compulsively if you don't want to be totally screwed over. I lost about 3 hours of progress, and I got frustrated, and I stopped playing.
Eek.
Yeah.
3 hours.
Well, so there's a part in kind of the beginning-ish of the game where you're given this option, and you can either be like, yeah, let's get out of here, or like, no, I want to stay and fight. And then the leader of the faction that you would be fighting for is like, okay, well, you can stay and fight, but you have to be able to take me on first. And so you get into a fight with him, and it's like this totally new mechanic that you haven't seen before in the game. And it's like almost like a rock, paper, scissors type thing. And if you lose that, you die. Like, he actually kills you. And then you have to start back over from where you last saved. And for me, that was 3 hours previously. And I was very upset. So I haven't played since then. But I've been.
I don't blame you.
I jumped into kind of the new indie multiplayer game that's kind of, I guess, really popular at the moment, called PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds.
Never heard of it. I've heard of this PUBG.
Yeah,
I don't know what PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds is, though.
It's pronounced PUBG.
PUBG, right.
Yeah, PUBG. And that, I'm kind of fascinated by it because there are so many things about it that I just, for me, shouldn't work. Like, everything quantifiable about this game, I should hate it and not enjoy playing it, but I really do. I really like it.
Oh, all right.
It's basically, for people who don't know, it's basically a Hunger Games / Battle Royale type situation where 100 players are just dropped onto an island, and you parachute onto the island from this drop plane, and you can either be solo, or you can be in a duo, team up with another player, or you can be part of a squad where 4 players work together to try and be the last person standing.
The last 4?
Either the last 4, the last 2, or the last person, depending on.
So you don't
like
fight each other
No.
after you get down to the last 4.
No, although that would also be an amazing little twist.
That'd be pretty cool.
But you drop onto the island and you're completely, you just have the clothes on your back, and you need to get a weapon, and then you need to outsmart and outplay all the other players.
So you don't have any pants?
Well, you have the shirt on your back, you have some pants.
Oh, okay.
But pants aren't 100% necessary. You can play without pants.
Okay.
Underwear is mandatory, but you can play without pants.
Can you be sitting at your computer with no pants on?
I believe everyone who is on a computer is sitting at a computer without pants on. I think that's just the safe assumption. And yeah, it looks very generic. So if you look up videos of people playing this game, it doesn't look spectacular. It doesn't look super impressive.
It looks like an Arma mod.
Yeah, I mean, it looks generic, and it's still in early access, but literally millions of people are playing this game.
Yeah.
Like, for a game that requires, I think it's between 80 to 100 people to be in a match before it starts, I have never waited more than 10 seconds to get into a game, which is pretty incredible.
Yeah, a lot of people.
Yeah, it's a lot of people, and you just drop in, and I think what I really dig about it is that within this very basic framework, there is a lot of potential for kind of emergent stories to just happen.
Right.
For example, I ended up in a house this one time, and I heard people running around and shooting outside, and so I knew it wasn't really safe to go outside, and so instead what I did, I managed to find a shotgun, and I slowly went through the house, shutting all the doors to make it look like nobody had been inside, and then I made my way up to the top level, and I heard someone coming in, and they were going through the doors. I finally managed to shut the last one, and maybe 15 seconds later, they opened the door, and I was able to kind of get the jump on them with my shotgun. And little moments like that, you're just like, yes, that was awesome.
Nice.
Or there's moments where you're you don't have anything, and so you have to hide behind a chair, or crawl through a wheat field or something, and just hope nobody notices you, so you can get something, get an item, get some health or something. and it's really kind of exciting, and it's paced so well because of how big the island is that even though there's 100 people that drop there initially, there are long stretches where like nothing happens, and it just kind of builds the tension.
Yeah, if you survive for a while, the last match can last for like an hour, right?
I mean, yeah, the match basically as the match goes on, the island the playable zone of the island gets smaller and smaller.
Yeah.
There's a white ring, and everything outside that ring will slowly be engulfed by this blue energy field. And if you're caught in the energy field, you start taking damage over time. And it's not necessarily a death sentence if you get caught in it on the first go around, on the first close down. Okay. You can last for about 5 minutes in that blue energy the first time it collapses. But each time it collapses after that, the damage you take over time gets a little bit more and a little bit more. And it will just keep shrinking like every 2 to 3 minutes. So it gets pretty intense.
Cool.
Yeah.
I can't wait for it to come to PlayStation whenever it does.
I know it's coming to Xbox One. I don't think it's coming to PlayStation.
No, they've said it will come to PlayStation.
They did?
It's just, yes. They said that the early access version will be on Xbox One, and then when it finally releases, it'll be on PS4.
Okay, so they kind of have a Destiny type situation with PUBG.
Yep. Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So cool.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. I did not think you were enjoying it because every time you tweet about it, you just tweet about people being racist.
Oh yeah, that is one thing I should mention. The game does something really cool with audio, where if you have you can have all the mics open, and like basically people within a certain radius of you will hear whatever you're saying into your mic. And so when the game loads in, there's about a minute-long period where people are just kind of loading into the game, and the map is loading up, and a lot of people just talk to each other. And in theory, that would be really cool. Like, you hear people that are closer to you. You can't hear people that are farther away. And if people have that feature open in-game, it can actually be really cool, too, because you can hear, like, a squad talking to each other if they're using the in-game chat. And if they aren't being quiet, then you can kind of hear them coming. But in practice, a lot of people just say as many racial slurs as they possibly can fit into that 1 minute period. And so a lot of people end up just turning off that feature, which is super unfortunate because it's really interesting. Like, this game's use of audio is really, really good.
Nice.
Yeah. So I've been really enjoying the game, except for the people who play it and who ruin it for everyone else. But that's pretty much online gaming in a nutshell.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's talk about a game that doesn't have any online features at all, as far as I'm aware of. It's called Crash Bandicoot.
Willy the Wombat.
Crash Bandicoot.
Yeah.
How about that game? That game's PlayStation 1 game. We're going back.
Came out. Yeah, I graduated.
It's a PlayStation 4 game. It's like the best-selling game this year. I don't know what you're talking about.
That's insane.
That is insane.
That is one of those things. I don't think anyone would have predicted that.
I don't think Activision even predicted it, because Sony probably had to convince them to friggin' fund this thing.
Yeah.
And no, it's easy money.
Yeah.
I mean, this game's been kind of a while coming, right? Like, there were a lot of rumors about it.
Well, I think it was, E3, or not E3, but like 3 years ago, one of the big wigs at Sony just wore a Crash Bandicoot t-shirt on stage.
Yeah, I think it's Sean Layden.
Yeah, it was Sean Layden. Didn't say anything about it at all. And then the next year, they had him walking out on stage, and his shadow was Crash.
Yeah.
He announced it then. And I think that was 2016? Maybe late 15? Because I don't really think it was E3. I think it was a different show.
Like the PlayStation Experience or something?
Yeah, it was PSX.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy.
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad people are buying it. I think it's cool. I just wouldn't expect it.
You guys haven't bought it, right?
No.
No.
I haven't either. Yeah.
I'm not... See, like, cards on the table. I'm not a big Crash Bandicoot fan. I don't have nostalgia for the series.
Neither do I.
I've never particularly liked the game. Sorry, Andy Gavin, if you happen to listen to this episode.
Friend of the show.
Andy Gavin. Dropping that name. I think there is an interesting conversation to be had, like, beyond my personal feelings on the game as to whether or not Crash Bandicoot is, like, a super important game beyond whether or not I like it.
Sure.
Words are hard.
I will say I really enjoy the series. I have them on my PS3.
But you also hate Mario 64, so take your opinion with a grain of salt.
Well, all right. So let's get to it then. All right. So here's what I like about
right
Crash Bandicoot. All right. Let's do it. Crash Bandicoot was blatantly inspired by Donkey Kong Country. Jason Rubin and Andy Gavin have said that Donkey Kong Country was a big inspiration, right? And this is a very Donkey Kong Country type of game.
But it wasn't just Donkey Kong Country.
Well, they have said that it was.
But they have also said it was Mario, Sonic, Who Framed Roger Rabbit, Pinky and the Brain.
Yes.
Like a whole bunch of different things.
It was originally jokingly referred to as the Sonic's ass game when they were developing it. Because it was from behind where you look at Sonic's ass the whole time. But anyway,
that is very, for me, that is one of my favorite pieces of video game trivia ever. Like that this game was called the Sonic Ass game, and that the phrase Sonic Ass Conundrum is like an actual thing that was going around in game design at this time. Like, Sega didn't want to make the full jump into 3D because they were worried about the Sonic Ass problem.
Right.
Where you'd be looking at a character's butt for the entire game, and how do you even make a game like that if you're looking at a butt? That's boring, right? And they ended up making Nights into Dreams as kind of a way to test out if that would be good enough for Sonic. And it didn't work out as well as they thought it would.
Sonic's Adventure, and just like any other Sonic game, the only good part was the first level. So, not talking about Sonic, but wait, Crash
just
Bandicoot.
one more
I
thing
have to
about
defend
Sonic.
myself.
One more thing about Sonic, though, and Crash Bandicoot. One of the main people who helped design Crash Bandicoot was actually one of the main designers on Sonic 2.
Mark Cerny.
Yep.
Mark
Cerny.
Also went on to design Knack, which is a masterpiece.
Well, I mean, we're getting a Knack 2, so shut your mouth.
I haven't
it's going to be great.
Knack. I don't know.
I know you really want to talk about Crash Bandicoot, but I just got to say something on behalf of Knack. Knack is not a bad game. It's really not. It is a good platformer, and it just has the misfortune of being kind of an average to good game that launched with the PlayStation 4, and people were looking for the wow factor, and it doesn't really have that.
Knack 2 looks fun, from what I saw at E3.
I mean, Knack 1 is a perfectly decent game. Like, that Knack 1 is a game I would hand off to, like, my nephews to play, and I'm sure they'd have a blast with it.
So that Crash Bandicoot.
Yeah, what about that game?
Alright, so I play platformers I realized something during the N64. I enjoyed myself with Banjo-Kazooie. Did not really enjoy Mario 64. You know that. And
Because you're a man of poor taste, but go on.
I then really enjoyed Jak and Daxter when it came out for the PlayStation 2 in 2001, maybe it came out.
Sure.
So I enjoy a handful of 3D platformers. But I prefer platformers where the fun comes from the challenge of getting from point A to point B, not collecting a billion different things. And that's not to say that I didn't love to collect things in platformers like Donkey Kong Country, but you were always doing it, getting from point A to point B. You were always collecting things while you were also dealing with the side-scrolling challenges, the immediate, like, challenge of your reflexes. Super Mario 64 doesn't have that, so it was just a bummer for me.
I'm just letting this moment sink in for everyone listening so they know exactly how wrong you are.
It's a fine game, and I understand why people like it.
Oh, it is more than a fine game. It is more than fine.
I completely understand why people like Mario 64 and all 3D Mario games. In fact, I'm looking forward to Mario Odyssey for various reasons. But Crash Bandicoot was more my speed because it was about that challenge of just going from point A to point B. And along the way, you collected stuff and found secrets and blah, blah, blah. But just those levels were extremely creative. Each one was more interesting than the last. It reminded me of a lot of Donkey Kong Country. And it was just a lot of fun. You had a fun little move set, and that only got better with 2 and 3, but we're not really talking about 2 and 3, which I understand. But there's so much variety and tons of like cool looking locations. It was great. I loved Crash Bandicoot. I don't know. Words will come to me as we go along. But right now, that's all I'm going to say. Is that Crash Bandicoot faithfully translated that 2D platformer into 3D, whereas Mario did something completely different when it moved to 3D. And I wasn't a big fan. That's all.
Okay.
Also, Metal Gear Solid 4 sucks. So,
right.
Come at me, bro.
Jeremy, you're going to have to interject here, because
Okay.
I'm livid.
Livid, are you? All right, so
yeah, I'm just so angry.
I haven't played much of Crash, honestly. I remember picking it up just at a friend's house every now and then when I was like 18, 19 years old, but I never really seriously played it. So, to prepare for the show, I watched all the Crash commercials ever made, and then this 107 facts about Crash Bandicoot.
For people who haven't seen the commercials, what are those like?
So yeah, the commercials are interesting, like because it was just a compilation of all of them back to back. There's quite a few. I didn't remember how many there were, but a couple of the early ones, before the game launched in September of '96 or whenever it was. It had this dude in a Crash Bandicoot suit, and you could see him, see his face, speaking through this megaphone.
Yeah.
And the first one, he makes references to Plumber Boy, Mustache Man, but anyway, hands up, he's driving around this old beat up pickup with a bunch of TVs in the back, and he's trying to, in different commercials, he's trying to get people to check it out. But he ends up in Seattle at Nintendo of America headquarters, and he starts taunting Mario, or Nintendo basically, in one of the commercials, and gets hauled away. But then there's, they're just kind of all over the place. Then there's one where he's not the same dude in the suit, because each game seemed to have an evolution of commercials, if that makes sense. But he's
that makes sense.
Knocking on this window at Pizza Hut and tells his family to eat their pizza backwards because, this is when the stuffed crust was first announced.
Stuffed crust pizza.
Yeah. I'm wow. It was kind of weird, seeing
Crash Bandicoot be a spokesperson for Pizza Hut.
Yeah, and then he ended up doing a couple of other corporate ads. Then there was a few of them with the two of the dudes from Jackass that were just super weird and super stupid.
What?
Yeah. Made no sense.
I didn't
whatsoever.
know this reached so far.
Yeah. And then, they used a lot of, B-list celebrities or, former famous people, if that makes sense, in their commercials.
Yeah.
Like people that are famous, but not for something they've currently done.
Right. Like if Carrot Top showed up in a commercial.
Yes, something like that. Oh, I'm surprised it didn't, actually. Anyway, my point about the commercials was I noticed, and maybe this was just a thing back then, at least that's what I assumed, because I noticed that like they would always show the PlayStation logo during the commercials, but they'd never show the Naughty Dog logo. I thought, oh, that's weird. So anyway, the next video I watched was the 107 Facts about Crash Bandicoot 1. And in that they had mentioned that Universal, who apparently was kind of like the publisher for the game,
Right.
Yeah.
kind of did the Nintendo to Activision, or Nintendo to not Nintendo, Atari to Activision, or Atari to everybody type of treatment, and just kind of like took credit for the development and all that, and would not even like didn't have Naughty Dog on any of their stuff. So at E3,
wow,
the year before it came out, Naughty Dog had their own booth and got everybody made a bunch of their own merchandise with their logo on it as developer, and that made Universal really mad. Yeah, the development history for that game. Not that it was like one of those long and tedious ones, just kind of.
It was like fast and volatile.
Yeah, and anyway, it went on to say something about how that kind of changed the way that publishers gave credit to developers. Was that game in a lot of ways. So it became a big thing, and now you always see sometimes you see the developer logo before you see the console logo now.
Yeah.
So I thought that was an interesting fact. As far as the game goes, I don't really have any real love for it. Like I said, it's not nostalgic to me, and I never really played Mario 64 either. So Jack, I don't know that I can help you out.
Ha!
Wait, you've never played Mario 64?
I mean, I have in the same sense that I played Crash. I never owned a Nintendo 64 when I was younger.
Oh, wow. Okay.
That was my adulting age.
So, Jack, go ahead. Go ahead, argue me. Fight me.
Well, I do want to point out this is not a versus episode. And it is really hot, and we're already at 45 minutes, so I don't want to sit here and listen to you two go back and forth between Mario and Crash. I'm just throwing that out there.
Yeah.
But just tell me why you don't like Crash as much, Jack. Because I still don't really understand it. So explain it to me. So
I don't like it. I think for a similar reason why I'm not a huge fan of endless runners today. Because Crash Bandicoot does a lot of things that are very similar to a game like Temple Run.
Yeah, which is a great game. Love that game.
Which is it's a fine game, and that's my opinion of Crash Bandicoot. It is a fine game. And
what is wrong with doing that? What is wrong with games that do that?
I don't find it as engaging as playing, say, Mario 64 and being able to run around a full 3D environment, which is initially how this game was going to be designed. But they ended up switching to a more condensed kind of point A to point B
because it was boring
style.
And there wasn't enough stuff for people to do.
Right, and I think that it makes sense for a more indie game type thing in Crash Bandicoot, which Crash Bandicoot is basically an indie game. It seems, and it's interesting that you mentioned that they made direct comparisons to Mario in the commercials for Crash Bandicoot.
Oh yeah.
Because Sony kept saying repeatedly in the lead up to Crash Bandicoot's initial release that it wasn't going to be a mascot type thing, and that's exactly what it ended up being.
Yeah.
Oh, Naughty Dog wanted it to be Sony's mascot. But Sony was trying to kind of downplay that.
Right.
But they just got,
eventually
they embraced it.
Naughty Dog didn't know what other games were being developed. So they were, that's why they kind of put all of that, from what I saw put all that effort into it was they wanted to be, the mascot. So they wanted
Right.
all um, I guess, to stand out and be noticed. And the Willie the Wombat story is funny too. That was something that Activision not Activision. God, I keep saying that Universal wanted, and A&D and Jason said no. They wouldn't even finish the game if they couldn't call him Crash Bandicoot.
I mean, they just had that working title because they thought it was funny. They didn't actually think it would be a good title for the game.
Yeah, but the publisher actually wanted to use it. They hated Crash Bandicoot.
It's interesting because they made the decision to go with PlayStation partly because it was more uncharted waters and they could more easily leave their mark. And so, yeah, it was interesting that Crash kind of became this mascot when you look at all the other animated cartoon animals that starred in games and have been completely forgotten, like Bubsy or Arrow the Acrobat. Gex. I mean, those are ones that haven't even been completely forgotten, but there are ones that are completely gone from the public memory.
What was that? That Glover.
Glover doesn't count. He's He's not an animal. He's a magical glove.
Bubsy. Nobody will ever think about that game again.
Pandemonium. Did you guys ever play Pandemonium?
No.
I actually really enjoyed Pandemonium.
See, but that's because your taste is bad. But
because it was a side-scrolling game that took advantage of 3D graphics, but it still retained the challenge of a side-scrolling platformer, and so it was fun.
I think there are a lot of technical things and like design things that make Crash Bandicoot interesting and cool from that perspective. Like the way they got around the whole Sonic ass problem. I'm saying that with air quotes. Is that they would show Crash Bandicoot from several different angles in any given level or area. And
right.
They would always start out showing his front side, and it would switch to the back side, and some levels were from the side, and so you'd get kind of a full picture of him. It wasn't
Sometimes
always
he'd be
just
running away from a boulder or a polar bear.
Towards the camera.
Yeah.
And those are all very interesting and creative ways to get around the problem of the looking at a character's backside all the time. From that perspective, I appreciate Crash Bandicoot, but I think it's worth noting that, I mean, even at the time, it was just kind of a decent game, even when it released. Like, people weren't like, this is the greatest game of all time. People were like, well, this is, I mean, it looks really pretty, but it's not necessarily like the best gameplay wise, especially compared to other platformers in the genre that just completely dominate. And to an extent, the advertising for the game brought on a lot of those comparisons because it's directly setting itself up as kind of the antagonist to Mario, Sony's answer to Mario, or like whatever. But for example, I found this review from GameSpot, December 1st, 1996. Over 20 years ago.
And also, like,
Jeez.
3 months after the game released.
Yeah.
Yeah, they used to do that.
I know. That's funny.
So I'll just read this section.
Okay.
For months, Sony insisted that Crash Bandicoot was not their new mascot. For months, Naughty Dog Software insisted that Crash Bandicoot isn't Sony's answer to Super Mario 64. For months, they went so far as to say that the games are completely different and shouldn't be compared. But the comparison is irresistible. Crash may not offer the graphical smoothness or versatility of Mario's vast new world, but its brilliantly colorful and complex jungle environments boast true and diversity of shape and texture. Kind of a tiki room cabinet of Dr. Caligari, which, by the way, is a really deep cut for film buffs. Well,
yeah.
It's not even really deep. It's pretty standard film stuff, but outside of like film school, you're not going to hear much about that movie. Silent horror film. Highly recommend checking it out. Anyway, back to quoting. Look beyond the pretty pixels, however, and Crash weighs in at only slightly above average. The graphics may be 3D, but gameplay is flat as roadkill on a 4-lane highway. Forget about plot. In most levels, Crash simply marches along a linear path, spinning into enemies and smashing crates filled with fruits. Collect 100 pieces of fruit, and you get an extra life. A tribute to Mario. Several levels are side-view jump fests, as seen on 16-bit machines dozens of times before. Rumor has it that the game's most interesting feature, hidden gems that are revealed by executing levels flawlessly, was only added at the behest of a Sony producer, not the Naughty Dog dev team. Naughty Dog also claims that Crash was originally a non-linear game, but found that restricting gameplay to a tight path made it more exciting. The pace of Crash is more exciting than Super Mario 64 most of the time, simply because the action comes non-stop.
Yeah.
Players may enjoy Crash Bandicoot purely as a test of jumping abilities, and make no mistake, jumping is key.
Yeah.
Crash executes every type of jump ever seen in a platform game. Short jumps, long jumps, short and long jumps, quick jumps, onto icy ledges, jumps onto tiny ledges, and so on. Players looking for an old school platform game. This is old school platform game, by the way, in 1996, that this reviewer is saying. Players looking for an old-school platform game with uncanny visual effects will certainly find it here. However, for players who want a true non-linear 3D run-and-jump game, snag Sony's highly underrated and now budget-priced Jumping Flash or Eidos Interactive Tomb Raider. So,
here's the thing.
They gave it a 6.8. 6.8 out of 10.
That's because it wasn't fully 3D. Everybody at the time was enamored with fully 3D games, but we hadn't figured them out yet. And I'm sorry, Mario 64 is revolutionary, and I appreciate it for that. But that game has issues that we had not figured out how to solve yet as an industry. As far as
Super Mario 64
navigate
solves
a 3D
those
space,
problems.
how to control a camera in 3D, how to have players control cameras in 3D, and how to provide challenges in 3D spaces that weren't just.
Super Mario 64 solves all those problems. Crash Bandicoot,
it doesn't.
It really does.
It
really
creates
does.
some. It creates.
It 100%
problems.
holds up. It 100% holds up over 20 years later. Like, that's crazy.
And Crash Bandicoot doesn't, because I think there's 5 million people playing it right now that would probably disagree.
That's Crash Bandicoot, I would argue, holds up, but at exactly the same kind of fair level that it initially launched to. Like, it is a fine game. I'm not saying it's a terrible game. I'm saying it is totally fine. I am saying also that it has a lot of very creative problems to address those same problems that Mario 64 addresses, but in a different way that I would argue is not as engaging as the way Mario 64 solved those problems. And I would also argue that a lot of people picked up the Crash Bandicoot remaster because of nostalgia, not necessarily because they're great games.
I don't know, because it actually didn't. Well, I got altogether it sold well, but the first one didn't sell amazingly well in the United States. It did really well in Japan. In fact, that game is huge in Japan, apparently. So
yeah, Crash is a big character in Japan.
Yeah, I don't think a lot of people see Crash as like this iconic. Like it never turned into Mario. That's for sure. Like ever.
Well, I mean, I think people do see it as iconic. I mean, that I feel like that's a lot of what the nostalgia is trading on, that kind of iconic status.
But they don't see it as a great game like Mario.
I mean, I think you would. I think there are certainly people out there who would say it is a great game and would be on that level, or in your case, surpass that level, which is just insane. But I would argue that a lot of that is rose-colored glasses, thinking back to a time when things were simpler and everything was great. And then you had Crash Bandicoot, and it was awesome. You could play that, and then you could pop in Crash Team Racing, and that game was awesome. And you know what? Crash Team Racing is awesome. It is one of the only Crash Bandicoot games that I think legitimately holds up and is wonderful. Crash Bandicoot, for me, it's a great game. The story behind it is really interesting. I would argue the story behind it is actually much more interesting than the game itself. So
you're saying it's not a best game, period?
Not for me. Not for me.
Okay.
Jeremy?
I mean, if I have to vote, I would say no. I would rather just abstain. I watched quite a bit of gameplay footage of it today, and it does look fun. I think, but and I kind of liked how it didn't always have the same. Sometimes it would be 3D in a 2D or 2D in a 3D world. I like how they changed perspective quite a bit, and the way they change the levels. And then watching the boulder level brought back some nostalgia to Uncharted 4, I guess.
Can you be nostalgic for Uncharted 4 already?
Yeah, wait, what are you talking about?
Based off of a Crash game? Because the level you try to beat Elena's high score in is the boulder.
Oh, yeah, in Uncharted 4, yeah. Did you know about that, Jack? We just told you about that, didn't we?
You talked about it last week. We literally talked about it last week.
Did you look it up since?
No. I did not bother.
You should just look it up. It's really cool. It's a really cool little moment.
I want to play Uncharted 4 myself.
You're not going to.
I'm going to eventually.
So
there are a lot of games I'm going to play.
You hate Naughty
eventually.
Dog. Just admit it.
You're right. I totally hate The Last of Us. That game was garbage.
Yep.
Definitely not one of the best games, period.
I know.
Like I voted.
No.
You boys. It's like Dylan and his brother all day long. My God. So Daniel, what say you?
Yeah, give us your final closing arguments.
I have to say that, yes, it's the best game, period.
Gosh.
For all the reasons that I outlined, I do think that Crash 2 is a better game. When I was younger, I thought Warped was a better game. I'm not so sure it is, but I think just for variety's sake, it's maybe close. I think it shored up some of the issues with Crash 1. I will say that the jumping is a little bit floaty in Crash. We haven't really talked about that. There's definitely a learning curve to like just figuring out how Crash controls, but I still think it's a lot of fun. I think once you figure that out, it's a lot like Donkey Kong Country. Once you have a handle on how he controls, you're good. You get it, and you can do it just fine. You can control him very precisely if you really need to. But there's a little bit of a learning curve, and I don't mind that. I think that actually adds to the depth and satisfaction of playing the game. And I just think there's a lot of variety, and really, I'm weird. I understand that I am weird. I understand completely. I dislike Sonic a lot, so Sonic is not included in this, but I've always enjoyed other games more than Mario. I enjoyed Donkey Kong Country more than Mario. I enjoyed Crash Bandicoot more than Mario 64. I enjoyed Banjo-Kazooie more than Mario 64. I enjoyed Jak and Daxter more than Mario Sunshine. I enjoyed Rayman Jungle Run Rayman Origins and Legends more than any of the 2D Mario games. Period. Non-stop. Full stop. So I'm weird. I get it. But Crash Bandicoot is a game that really appeals to me. It's getting from point A to point B, and it's testing your reflexes and your hand-eye coordination to get there, and the levels are full of personality and fun. They're colorful. They're ridiculous. It's a freaking cartoon platforming game. It's supposed to be colorful and ridiculous and stupid. And it is. And it's silly. And I can forgive some of the minor issues with how it controls. Because I just think it's a lot of fun. And that's that. I like it. I would much rather sit down right now and play Crash Bandicoot than sit down right now and play Mario 64.
Yeah, I think you established that.
Yeah.
And I mean that's all the things you listed are just crazy, but that's fine. That's fine. I only respect you slightly less. But yeah, I mean, again, I'm not trying to say, and we will never say on this show that, I shouldn't say that we will never say it, but pretty much 99% of the games we're going to be talking about on this podcast are always going to be, almost always, 99% of the time, going to be good games, at the very least. And I do think that Crash Bandicoot is a good game. I just don't think it's one of the best games of all time.
And that's
That's your opinion.
Yeah, and it's right. And so
I have a feeling I'll be in the minority when we put out the poll for this, so don't worry.
I'm not so sure. I think nostalgia for Crash Bandicoot is currently at an all-time high right now. So I'm not entirely sure how people are going to come down on this.
People are pretty mad at that bridge level.
Nostalgia, man, it's a powerful thing.
Yeah,
it is.
Not that many. Again, maybe over the years, that many people played it. Just happy for it.
Did you know that it's the Dark Souls of video games, though?
Does it mean like it's really hard?
That's people have been making the joke that it's the Dark Souls of video games now.
I get it
Yeah.
now.
I have trouble. We've already gone over time, but I just have trouble articulating exactly why I don't like Crash Bandicoot. I'm just not a fan of that style of gameplay. Let's close out the show. Otherwise, I'm just going to keep rambling about how much I don't like Crash Bandicoot. So
fair. Fine. All right. So I mentioned the poll, and the poll last week was for Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion. And
where did people come down on that?
Half and half, exactly.
What? No.
Yep.
Wow.
Yes. Wow. What?
I said, "Wow."
Yeah.
Oh.
Wow.
No, the poll was 50-50, split right down the middle.
So who won?
Well, I guess we're the deciding votes then.
Yeah. And
So
we said no, didn't we?
Yeah, it's not a best game period.
Yeah.
Wow.
Sorry.
Sorry, Facebook.
Yep.
And Twitter.
Or half of Facebook and half of Twitter.
We knew that would be divisive, but it definitely was.
I think that's our most divisive game yet.
Yeah.
Like 50-50. I don't think that's ever happened before.
Yeah. I don't know,
It has now.
let's do a poll and see if that's ever happened before on the show. So somebody needs to go back and go through all the polls and tell us.
However, definitely way more people, probably 90% of people play first person, not third person, Jeremy.
Probably, yeah.
Yep. All right, so anyway. Jeremy.
Daniel.
Jack.
Daniel.
Thank you both for joining me tonight for episode 68 of the Best Games period. What?
Did I miss the whole Extra Life thing?
No, not yet.
Oh, wait, that happens after this. Damn it.
Stop it. God damn it.
I'm sorry.
Jack, tell us about Extra Life.
It's an amazing charity where people play games and raise money for sick and injured kids in Children's Miracle Network hospitals all across the United States and Canada. My goodness, it is wonderful. You can sign up over on extra-life.org, where you can also find out more about it. And as just kind of another cool thing, when you sign up, you can actually choose which Children's Miracle Network hospital you want to support, and 100% of everything you raise goes directly to that hospital to help sick and injured kids. So that's pretty wonderful. And if you kind of want to get more involved on the community side of things, you can head over to community.extra-life.org, where you can just kind of meet other people who do Extra Life. You can read awesome articles about games and gaming, and you can find this very podcast. So head over there, learn about Extra Life, sign up if you haven't. Just do all the things, because you get an awesome excuse to play games, and you also get to help kids. It's really that wonderful.
It's the best. So yeah, go to community.extra-life.org to find this podcast, The Best Games, period. And you can also find it on Game Informer and Facebook.com/Best Games, period. Twitter @Best Games, period. You can find us on iTunes under The Best Games, period. Leave us a review there, that would be swell. And you can also find us on SoundCloud under The Best Games, period. You can find us on Patreon, patreon.com/Best Games, period. Throw us $1 a month.
I need to update our Patreon. I keep forgetting.
Throw us $1 a month, and you'll remind Jack that that he needs to put out some extra content on Patreon, because there will be some extra content for Patreon supporters for just $1. That's all.
Yeah,
that's all it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's every Monday we put a new show up, so stay tuned if you enjoyed this. If you're a new listener, hopefully you come back for next week. Maybe we should do a Mario 64 episode sometime soon.
Maybe. We'll have to do it before episode.
We might not do an episode after that. Jack might fire
We'll have to do it before episode 100, so that way during episode 100 you guys can battle it out which ones get kicked out.
I'm still really mad we didn't do Mario 64 for episode 64. We really screwed the pooch there.
Well, we can do it for episode 69, because Mario's a player.
We wasted episode 64 on Papo-EO. I mean, we didn't waste it, but I mean, there was so much potential there for 64-related games.
That was so dumb, Jack. Why'd you do that?
I don't know. I was thinking we should do Papo-EO.
Yeah.
Anyway.
All right. Hey, I didn't thank you listeners for listening, but thank you. Till next time.
You're welcome.
Not you. Till next time.
I had to listen too.
We'll see you all on the Flippity Dippity.